Welcome back to another hot day in the southern Philippines. So today I'm going to talk about, now that I live here in the Philippines, 5 things that I have discovered that I really didn't know when I had always come here as a tourist before, and some things that I found that you can avoid. So let's jump right into it. By the way, real quick, everything that I tell you in this video, some of it's going to be negative things to avoid, but overall I love the Philippines. These are just things that you should expect and you should prepare for when you come. Let's get into the content. The first big one is that it costs a lot more than you would expect here in the Philippines compared to what you see with a lot of videos and stuff. Now, it's true that living in the Philippines, you can save a lot of money if you're going to be here long term, because you'll have longer term leases, or if you own homes or whatever, you can save a lot of money. But as far as touring around the Philippines or staying short term, it's just much more expensive. The hotels and stuff are more expensive than a lot of the neighboring countries. Your electrical costs are much more expensive. Now, all of these in comparison to the West, such as the United States or Europe, are still far more affordable. But for short-term tourist type accommodations, flights traveling around the Philippines, even ferries going around the Philippines, you end up spending a lot more than you would expect. So if you're coming for a short term, or if you're planning on doing short vacations while you live in the Philippines, you really need to account for that in your budget so that you're prepared for what those additional costs are. And I would say add about 50 to 60% to what you actually expect. The second thing is dealing with cash. I have always thought of the Philippines as being a cash is king economy, and whenever I've come as a tourist in the past, I've always brought significant amount of cash, basically enough cash to pay for everything I would need on the trip. Whether it was going to be for a short trip and I would need $3,000, or a longer trip that was going to be $5,000, I had always brought the cash. But now living here in the Philippines this time, I didn't have access to that type of cash because I'd been gone from the United States for quite some time. And in fact, when I arrived in the Philippines, I only had around a little over $1,000 in cash on me. And what I found out is that the exchange rates, if you have a bank account while you live here in the Philippines and you use a service such as Wise, which used to be TransferWise, I'm actually an affiliate of them, link in the description below, but when I started using those in the Philippines, I saved so much money on the transaction fees, even compared to what I was paying for cash. So to give you an example, just about 2 weeks ago, the mid-market exchange rate was 59 pesos to the US dollars. And when I transferred money from my TransferWise, from my bank account in the United States, into a bank account here in the Philippines, I actually got that mid-market rate. I had to pay the fees, which were about $10, but again, this was on like, I think $1,400. So I had to pay about $10 in fees, but I got that mid-market exchange rate of 59 pesos, which I think today it's up to like 59.12 pesos for each US dollars. But if I had gone on that same day, and I did measure it to exchange cash, and those cash have been perfect bills and nothing wrong with them, no bends or creases, so I got the maximum value, I still would have only gotten 58.20 pesos compared to the 59. So at the end of the day, with that much money, I still would have come better out, more than likely, with the Wise transfers. And following up on cash things and to avoid is that unless you have a bank account that allows you reimbursable ATM fees if you're taking out of ATM machines, then you're going to pay a lot of money here in the Philippines every single time that you withdraw from an ATM. And you're going to end up paying, I believe it's 250 pesos, which is about $5, for every single time that you pull money out of the ATM. Now, if you have a reimbursable debit card that pays you back for those like I do, you don't have to worry about them. But still, it was a surprise to me because I had never taken out money from an ATM in the Philippines before this trip, until living here, how expensive those fees are if you don't get them reimbursed. So you should avoid at all costs having to do that by either bringing the cash, or if you're going to be living here, obviously have a bank account you can transfer into so that you can save money, because it will add up over the long term. The third thing that I learned living here in the Philippines is that when you're dealing with local businesses, like if you want to go to a resort, say on Small Island or in Mati or somewhere else, you're probably going to be very unlikely to find a website that those resorts or those businesses actually have online. So here, Facebook is king. Basically, either they can't afford to have their own website and hosting, or they just see it as a waste of money. So they go and get a business Facebook page for free on Facebook, and it's not as good as controlling their own site, obviously, but that's where you can get information, and you can get contact information, and you can message these places to find out things or to ask about rates or vacancies or so forth. So whenever you get stuck and you find that you just can't find anything online, look up the places on Facebook and see if you can find their page there. And likely most of the major resorts, most of the businesses that you're going to be looking at will have a Facebook page for that, to get your questions answered and to get in contact with those people. Now, the fourth thing that I learned this trip after living in the Philippines that I did not know before was dealing with airlines and baggages, especially for short little trips and hops on budget airlines, is that you really need, if you're going to be checking bags or if you're going to be having a carry-on bag that you're going to have to pay for, you really need to go ahead and pay for those when you book them online, because if you arrive at the airport with that bag, what turned out to be a very small fee if you'd simply paid for it at the time of your booking, when you get to the airport, they are going to gouge you. In fact, some of these lower budget airlines here, and this is all over Southeast Asia, it's not just the Philippines, it's a Southeast Asia thing. They make a lot of their money, like Vietjet and places like that, on simply being able to charge you these extra fees at the airport. So avoid that at all costs. Make sure that you front load your fees on there. Go ahead and guess, if you have to, what you're going to take, so that you don't get eaten alive by those fees when you travel. And if you do that, your travels throughout here in the Philippines are going to be so much better for you, and you're going to be so much happier. All right, the last thing that I learned living here in the southern Philippines, and this probably won't apply to Manila, but pretty much in the provinces, in Davao, in any of the other places that I've been in the Philippines, if you're going to live here, you should seriously consider getting your own transportation, whether that be a motorbike or a car. I remember when I had talked about moving to the Philippines before with my wife, she'd always talked about getting a car. Filipinos always want to have cars, and I always thought it was a bad idea, because as a tourist when I had been here, I'd had taxis or pedicabs or whatever to get around. But if you're living here, that transportation really does give you freedom, and you want that. If I didn't have a motorbike, I'm out here in this wonderful park today. Just show you this around. I'll show you a little bit more maybe. But I wouldn't have been able to get here, or if I'd come out here on a pedicab, it would have been a lot more expensive than just getting around town, because this is outside of town, it's quite a ways out. And the big thing is if I'd come out here, I might not have found transportation back, or I might have had to wait hours, or I might have had to walk. Whereas if I had my own bike like I do now, I could just drive out here, find this place, which I did today, discovering it, and then I can drive back. I don't have to wait on anyone. And I had always been against getting a car in the Philippines, and I'm still not convinced that I want to do that. That may be something I look at in the future, but it certainly will make your life much more convenient if you live here. If it's raining, if you've got to go long distances, if you've got a family such as I do, transporting them all around. And rental cars are very expensive here, and that's one of the reasons I had not considered it. So to rent a car in the region that I'm in the Davao region, you can find them sometimes as low as $35 for an economy, but most of the time it's going to be about $40 a day for that car. And to me, that was very expensive compared to what I was used to in the United States, especially before the pandemic. Because back then I was paying anywhere from $28 to $35 a day for a rental car. Now I'm quite aware that that's no longer the case in the United States, which I'll get to in a minute, but still, from my point of view, from what I had done before renting cars in the United States, it seemed it's more expensive here than it was then. Now, I'm sure there's been inflation here too. And in fact, I looked on, I think it was Enterprise Rent-A-Car in the United States, where I had rented before in the past. And just to get an economy car in the town that I lived in before was $96 a day if I did it a month out. So I'm aware that inflation and things have changed in the United States in the last 18 months to where 40-something dollars is a bargain now. So the Philippines is still a bargain compared to the United States with inflation and everything, but it is worth considering if you're gonna stay here long term, if you're gonna live in the Philippines, to go ahead and get you a vehicle so you have freedom. Like I do on my motorbike, which is called Freedom because one of my subscribers named it for me, which was great. Guys, if you like this content, if it's been helpful, make sure that you hit the subscribe button so you can find me again. I've had a couple, two now, subscribers tell me that they're no longer getting notifications or seeing anything in their feed when I post videos, and they thought I had stopped. They thought I had stopped posting, so they actually went to their subscriber page or to my homepage and saw that I'd posted like 3 videos in the last week that they hadn't seen. So they may have done the same thing to you. YouTube loves to suppress content for God knows what reason. I guess I said something that hacked some powers that be off. I'm sure it was something true, but subscribe if you want to see more. Check back occasionally just in case you want to see if there is something posted, and hit the like button if you found this content helpful. I absolutely love the Philippines. I'm so happy I'm here, and I want to share my experiences with you. So hopefully some of this stuff helps you with your learning experience if you're coming to the Philippines, or if you're thinking about coming to the Philippines, because these are things that I've learned since I've been here and things I wished I had knew before I had come. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and on this hot day, I'll sign off and see you in the next video.